Hello and welcome to the Boston University Programs in Genealogical Research webinar. This is Liz Klein and I will be your moderator today. Thank you so much for joining us. During today's webinar, we will cover the programs in genealogical research offered by Boston University, including Genealogy Essentials and the Certificate in Genealogical Research. We will also cover the curriculum, the course areas, and the instructors. Also, we will cover the registration information, how to enroll, and then at the end of the webinar, there will be a question and answer period. As a reminder, you can enter questions throughout the webinar, and we will try to cover as many as possible during the question and answer period. There should be a question box located in the lower right-hand corner of your screen where you can enter questions. We will read and answer the questions at the end of the webinar. It's with great pleasure that I can introduce Melindy Lutzburn today, who is the Program Director of the Boston University Genealogical Research Programs. She brings tremendous expertise and wealth of experience to the programs. She is a past president of the American Society of Genealogists, an accomplished author and editor and presenter. And it's my pleasure to introduce Melindy, who will be taking us through the programs in genealogy today. Melindy?
Thank you so much, and I'm delighted that so many of you have joined us this afternoon. I'm nowhere near as grim as that picture that you just saw, but I have been doing this for over 40 years, and it is my pleasure to be able to describe the two programs here at Boston University that are geared to two different groups of genealogists. We do have two courses. One is called Genealogical Essentials, and this is for the beginner who is serious about finding the truth and who would like to learn the basic standards and get exposure to the many very useful tools that are out there for that kind of research. It's a 4-week program, and we'll say some more about that in detail. The second program is a 15-week, it's been described as boot camp version of 5 modules that produce exposure to all kinds of skills that you really need to become an accomplished genealogist, and we'll describe the different modules in a little bit. Go ahead with the next slide. Genealogical Essentials is the 4-week course, and it has a lot of hands-on. Among the things that's most interesting about this is you start with yourself, and one of the first assignments is to go out and identify records about you on the internet. This is a major eye-opener, and we teach how to do further work with those different tools that you discover in these searches. Next slide. In Essentials, you begin by laying the foundation. You are taught to recognize clues in the information you may already have. We also expose you to best practices and introduce the genealogical proof standard, which is a 5-step standard that gets you to reliable evidence and conclusions. Next slide. In Tools and Techniques, you experience looking up certain things on different platforms, and you are guided through how to evaluate what you find and to document it, and how to do a very clean search where you aren't distracted by things that turn out to be inaccurate. Next slide. We have special topics in Essentials. A lot of people are looking for origins that are not in the US, and we do go through at least one complete case. Next slide. And once we've had some experience in the records and knowing what to look for, then we take that information and correlate it and see what it leads to. And we apply the proof standard. And people graduating from this course are qualified to do quite a bit of work and would do very well to go on to the certificate program thereafter. Our textbooks for essentials are The Researcher's Guide, the perennial favorite by Val Greenwood, and Kimberly Powell's The Everything Guide to Online Genealogy. Her expertise came from writing really excellent articles on how, I think it was how.com, and her book is really essential to getting to all those hidden and excellent sources online. Next slide. The certificate in genealogical research is the 15-week boot camp. We also use the genealogical proof standard, but through the 5 modules, we instruct about how specific parts of it can be applied. Next slide. For those of you who are wondering what the certificate program, what audience it really serves, I would say that most of our, the largest number of our attendees have been librarians or in the library or archives field. We've had a number of teachers take this course. There have been nurses, doctors. We've had military, quite a number of retired and active military. A few have been anthropology professors. We've had financiers. We've had a large number of lawyers. Maybe after librarians, lawyers are the most popular occupation for our students. And I'm still waiting for my first journalist. And it's sort of ironic because I think of all the occupations out there that could really use the proof standard. Journalists would be maybe one on that list, and yet we've never had a journalism student. Next slide, please. For essentials, there are very few prerequisites, but for the certificate program, we do need you to have basic computer literacy skills. You need a high-speed internet access. There are some videos that you watch, and you need to be able to log in once every day or so. You want to be able to write English well and understand it. You should have some basic, at least, experience with records. And if you don't have that at this point, you might go down to your local courthouse or a historical society and look at what's there. You need to be able to recognize certain kinds of records. You need to know what a parish register looks like. There are certain basic things that you would probably be lost without knowing. So if you have never handled records like a deed or probate or vital records, you should have had vital records contact. You might want to do a little bit of that before you start. Another good way to be comfortable with what you're starting in the certificate program would be, could you take the slide back one, please? To pick up a few of the larger genealogical journals and see how some people have solved problems that might be like yours and to see how they present their arguments. And if you're looking at journals like the New England Historic Genealogical Register or the NGS Quarterly, these will show you how we stepped through to our proofs. Okay, the next slide, please. So the first module is Foundations, and in this you are assigned a report where you must visit a repository, locate a document, and write a report on it. This is the only thing that you have to get out of your pajamas to do, and it's not due until the very end of the 15 weeks, so you don't have to rush into it, and it sometimes is beneficial to get at least halfway through before you actually execute on it. But this is one of the most interesting assignments because you sometimes get a chance to see your classmates' projects, which will be as different as all of you are. Next slide, please. Second module will get you some in-depth experience with online sources and a sensible way to go through steps of research. And you're walked through some examples. You create your own research plan after you've seen examples. And there's a very popular scavenger hunt at the end of this module that tests your ability to find things that you might not have been able to find before. Next slide. The core of our certificate program is Module 3, Evidence, Evaluation, and Documentation. This is the essential part of what we teach. It shows you how to evaluate evidence, how to write a good citation that reflects that you know what you've looked at and allows a reader to find what you've looked at. And it develops analytical skills that you absolutely need to be a good problem solver. Next slide. So once you've accomplished graduation from Module 3, the fourth slide, the fourth module, Forensic Research, is where you get to apply this. And in this 3 weeks, we cover photo identification, air tracing, and new in January for this next offering of the course will be a unit on autosomal DNA. These are real-life cases. Some of them are solved, some of them are not. You'll be able to choose your own problem in the last 100 years and write an essay on that. I have a picture up here. That's me about 2009, and I just wonder if anybody can guess where I'm standing. That's kudzu all over those gravestones. And the stone that I'm trying to uncover was for someone who died in 1967. This is an infamous cemetery in Richmond, Virginia, and one of the air tracing cases in this module was only solved because of inscriptions on those stones. We also examine the very serious ethical considerations that you have when you're doing forensic genealogy. Forensic genealogy is the study of identity and kinship as it pertains to the law, and you are often dealing with living persons. So it's important to be grounded in what you believe is right and wrong when you deal with the living. Next slide. In our final module, Professional Genealogy, there are more exposure to client-based research. You'll be handing in your repository report that I mentioned in Module 1, and you'll be discussing future education options. There's at least one contract that you'll write, and the instructors are world-class in this regard in advising about professional aspirations. So that's the 5 modules. At the end, there's a tremendous alumni group. We are passing our 2000th graduate this year. About half of them participate in a listserv that's wholly maintained by the alumni, and it is a ticket to talk about all the things that you're most interested in and get the advice of your peers. So quite an advantage to being a certificate graduate. Next slide. Our textbooks are the Genealogy Standards book that came out in 2014. There are readings in it. There are readings in Evidence Explained by Elizabeth Shown Mills. There are readings in Professional Genealogy. There are readings in Mastering Genealogical Proof. That's particularly used in Module 3. And we'll be using in Module 4 Genetic Genealogy in Practice, and we will be focusing on autosomal DNA. Next slide. So just to see if you would really benefit from all these modules, I pose this question to you. Can you identify the people in this photo if the only thing that I tell you is where it was taken? This is called the clan, and it is part of the photo identification exercise in Module 4. And yes, you can. If I tell you where it's taken and you follow the 5 steps, all of our students have been able to name the people in this picture with just that much information, the picture in front of them and the place where the picture was taken. Usually I'm told that it's not possible, but it actually is. And your final assignment in forensic is to take another picture and do that all by yourself. So you see how it is with a team, and you see how it is on your own. Our distinguished faculty include Connie Lenzen, a certified genealogist who leads the foundation course. Allison Ryle teaches problem-solving techniques and technologies, and I have to tell you about Allison. She's pretty funny. When we taught this class on site in Boston, we had a computer lab, and we'd get in just before everybody would enter, and we'd have to prepare all the computers so that they were logged in and could access websites. And Allison would do that as a lab assistant for us. And one day we came in and more than half the screens were set to display upside down. And it didn't faze her at all. She just Googled upside down screen, followed the directions, and she changed them all so they were right side up. And then she went home and she turned her husband's screen upside down. And bless her heart, she's still married. I'm the teacher for forensic research. Julie Machuca, who is a member of our Pioneer class, is the instructor for evidence evaluation and documentation. You could not get a better instructor for this topic. And finally, Module 5, Professional Genealogy, is taught by Michael Ramage, who is both a lawyer and a certified genealogist. Next slide. So for a successful course, you're going to want to know these things about logistics. The course is instructor-led. It's not self-paced in the pure sense. There are deadlines, there are grades, there are points you can lose for not meeting the deadlines. You participate in discussions with your classmates, so you need to check in periodically so that you can continue with the conversation. You have many ways to do that. You will have a water cooler where you can chat just to your group. You have an Ask the Instructor section where you can ask questions about course material or about things that you'd like the rest of your group to hear about, and those are usually answered only by the instructor. Then you have the discussion areas. Then you have, in some modules, a live classroom opportunity where usually the instructor speaks, but the audience can keyboard questions or comments. Sometimes it's instructor keyboarding as well. And we do recommend that you use Firefox, if not Chrome, as your browser to access this. It's the best and most compatible. Our platform is Blackboard, and it offers you the opportunity to call
Melinda, are you still there? Oh, I think we may have lost Melinda for a minute here. Carrie, can you speak to the program schedule and how people can enroll?
Perfect. I'd be happy to. So hopefully Melinda will be back in just a moment. But for now, I'll talk about the schedule for both Genealogy Essentials and the Certificate in Genealogical Research. Boston University offers the program 3 times per year, every January, every May, and every September. So whenever best suits your schedule, there is always a session right around the corner. The upcoming session is starting on January the 17th. People still have the entire month of December to enroll, so the deadline is the 31st. Our tuition is posted on our website. However, I'll get specifically into the Genealogical Essentials course is $775. That is the 4-week course. And the Certificate in Genealogical Research is $2,695. Next slide, please. If you are a member of any of these groups, you are eligible for a 10% discount. So this would be American Ancestors, formerly known as the New England Historical Genealogical Society, APG, the Association of Professional Genealogists, NGS, the National Genealogical Society, and SCGS, the Southern California Genealogical Society. So again, that would be 10% off the tuition on the previously mentioned prices. If you do have any questions, we do have an enrollment team that's here to help you, whether it's a course question or a timing schedule question or a registration question. We are happy to help. You can reach us via email, you can reach us via phone, or you can go right on the website. We do have as much information as we can fit on the website available to you, as well as live chat is available on our website. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for joining us, and I want to hand it back over to Liz, where I believe we'll start the question and answer section.
Yes, thank you so much, Carrie. So just as a reminder, you can type a question or comment in the questions box in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. And we have received some questions already, so we'll jump right in. But please feel free to submit your questions while we're talking. The first question is, how many classes are there per week? And what happens if you miss an online class?
Can you hear me?
Oh, Melinda's there. Great.
Oh,
Yep.
Great. You can hear me. I didn't do anything. It just went away. I don't know what that was about. The courses are divided into units, and so it's not exactly a class situation. You should check in daily or every other day at least, and the material will be doled out in weekly doses so that you can access it and meet the deadlines. And there'll be a recommendation for how you should handle each module at the very beginning when you get a welcome announcement from your instructor. So if the question is more about how much time you expect to spend, we find that it was more like 8 to 10 hours when we were teaching in the classroom, but that it's more like 20 hours for people working through this online. And so it's reasonable to expect that you should spend 2 to 3 hours daily looking at this and answering questions and participating in discussions.
Great, thank you. The next question, Melindy, is can you do both programs simultaneously?
You could, but I can't see why you'd want to. They don't truly overlap, but if you are capable of doing the certificate program, I don't think you would find the Essentials program as valuable, and it might not be value added to do both. On the other hand, if you started the certificate program and it was far too difficult, you'd want to go back to Essentials. So I'd say no. From your point of view as the consumer, I think you'd benefit from doing them one at a time and not doing Essentials if you are a competent researcher already.
Okay, great. And Melindy, can you speak to the workload for each of the programs in terms of an average number of hours per week?
I'm sorry, I was actually
Liz,
talking about the certificate program before. Yeah, go ahead,
okay.
Carrie.
Thank you, Carrie.
I can take the time. She asked a time commitment question, and I can say rough estimate time commitment for the Genealogy Essentials course. It is about 7 to 10 hours per week. And for the certificate program, we estimate, I know Melinda had mentioned the 20, we do estimate about 14 to 16 hours per week. That time commitment will of course differ from person to person, but those are rough estimates.
Great. And Carrie, you probably can take this next one too. Can you listen to a lesson a second time?
So all the information is available to you online. So if there's a video you want to watch again, you can absolutely do that. If there's an article you want to read, again, you can absolutely do it. And I do like to stress the course is asynchronous, which basically means there is no set time of day or day of week that we require you, the student, to log on. Melinda mentioned there are deadlines that you have to meet, but it's up to you. If you're a morning person, you can log on in the morning. If you're a night owl, you can log on at night. If you like to do it during your lunch hour, completely up to the student, as long as you're following the instructor's assignments and hitting your deadline.
Great, thank you. This is a technical question. Is Adobe Flash required?
I'm going to ask Jared that one.
I believe it is, but we can get back on that one.
I think you do need Adobe Flash to view the videos, the embedded videos, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Okay, and Melinda, this question is about the course content. Are all of the things covered in the 4-week course covered in the certificate course?
No. There are some things that are so basic that they are not covered in the certificate course. The Essentials course is for someone who's just starting out, so it's very, very basic.
Okay, and how many participants?
Can I add something, Liz?
Oh,
if
sure.
I may add something,
Go ahead, Carrie.
I just want to reiterate that Melinda had said earlier, the 2 courses are unique. So please don't think that the first 4 weeks of the certificate course is the same as the Essentials course. They are 2 unique courses.
Great, thanks for clarifying that. The next question is, how many participants are there at any one time?
In an individual course? Well, that has varied quite a bit, but for your group in the certificate course, your group usually has between 20 and 30 people in it. In Essentials, you are not really in a group, but you would probably not see more than 50 classmates at a time. Is this the sense of the question?
I believe so. I think it is how many are in each session, yes. And maybe you could speak, Melinda, to the interaction between peers within a session.
Yes, in the certificate course, the students will have discussions with their classmates within their group, and there'll be posed problems, or there'll be something that they should look at online, and then they come back and report on their impressions gotten from that. And sometimes that is more revealing than any text could ever be. You also have the opportunities in the water cooler. Many of our current and past students have brought their own problems to the water cooler and talked about what programs they like and what reading they've done or what lectures they've seen that addressed a particular problem. And some have taken the lessons and even built on them in those forums, and the classmates participate, and it's been a marvelous and very collaborative effort, something that you don't get in a lot of lecture or institute settings. It's the teamwork that makes the solutions much easier than working by yourself.
Great. The next question is, how many of the 2,000 graduates have gone on to become a certified genealogist?
We don't keep an exact track of that, but like I said, about half have joined the alumni group, and often they will say, hooray, I got the job. I, as an instructor, write a recommendation for a former student maybe once a month. That doesn't sound like a lot, but we do post positions that we see elsewhere or are told about, or sometimes in the case of title searchers, we've had companies come to us and say, would you recommend some of your students for XYZ job tracing land for a quiet of title, for instance. So there are job opportunities that are marketed to our alums, and I would say probably a quarter of our graduates go on to do something that's commercial, where they're actually taking clients or applying their research skills to a job like a reference library job. It might be the distinguishing point that gets you the job when you've got comparable qualifications to other candidates. So don't know the exact numbers, but it's a very well regarded course, and from the number of times that my candidate that I've supported has gotten to the point where I'm on the phone for a final reference check, I think our candidates are very successful in getting placed out there.
Great. This is kind of a similar question. If you can address this directly, is how likely is it to become a certified genealogist after completing the certificate program?
Well, I wouldn't try to go straight from the certificate program to the portfolio process. You really need a little bit of experience to have the casework to be able to fulfill the portfolio requirements. But the certificate program will expose you to all the different elements that you need in your skill set to be able to successfully produce a good portfolio. And we've probably got a dozen CGs so far, which is not a great number considering 2,000 graduates. On the other hand, there are a tremendous number of people out there who practice without the CG, and it often shows. Still, that period of getting experience is shorter or longer for some, and we've only been out here since 2009, so I think it's not unreasonable to think that in the very near future there will be more BU graduates who have gotten a CG than those who have not.
Great. The next question is kind of building on that as well. Could you speak in a little more detail regarding what kinds of job opportunities certificate course grads have reported?
The largest number have been people who are librarians, so they have an MLS or MILS and are already employed. However, there are job openings for directors of research groups. One of our instructors is employed by a foundation in Florida where she maintains a genealogy research room in a part of a library, in a public library, that's paid for under foundation grants, and there are a number of those across the country. She does not have an MLS. There are lineage societies that employ researchers. The DAR is one that's employed quite a number of our BU graduates. You physically need to be in the Washington, D.C. area, though. There are firms across the country that do various kinds of research that hire. A lot of them are centered in Salt Lake City, but you don't need to live in Salt Lake City. There are historical societies and genealogical societies that have buildings and have research hours and do lock-ins, and that's a more contractual kind of position, not a job with benefits kind of position. We've had students who've gone on to become TV stars. When you're watching the Genealogy Roadshow, 2 of the 3 people there are BU graduates or former instructors. I would say that's pretty much the scope. There are a number of people who work in law offices who take this course. We actually had in our first class a organ donor locator from the Harvard Medical School who wanted to learn the identity and tracking skills. So in large part, it's what you bring in your personal skill set to genealogy that dictates what you'd be a good match for afterwards.
Great. There's certainly lots of options there. The next question is related to the Essentials class. The comment is that their interest is to build a family tree. Will the Essentials class cover tools such as Ancestry.com or Roots Magic?
It will definitely do that, and you will see that in your readings in Kimberly Powell's book and in the exercises in the Essentials course itself. And there's a facilitator available to answer specific questions if you're not getting as much as you hope to in a particular setting.
Great, and it sounds like we have a few participants who have joined us internationally today. So Melinda, could you speak to if the courses have a focus on the U.S. or if it's really appropriate for an international audience?
I believe that it's very appropriate for an international audience, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. While a number of the examples are American or Canadian or English, there are no boundaries to the application of the genealogy proof standard or the genealogy standards that we're teaching. And as long as you can understand us teaching this in English, we can communicate the problem-solving methods and the techniques to you that would be useful wherever you are. In the past, we've had students from South Africa, Israel, the Bahamas, Australia, China, Canada, the British Commonwealth, and Germany and Poland, and don't think we've ever had any Russians, but certainly people with those roots have participated, and in many cases we're able to help them with their personal problem in Choose Your Problem.
Great, thank you. And Carrie, I'm going to direct the next set of questions to you. They're around the tuition. One question is, are the books included in that tuition fee? Are there other required materials?
Sure, I can take that one. So the cost of the books is not included in the tuition prices that we mentioned, which is the $775 for essentials and the $26.95 for certificate. Rough cost of there's the 2 required books for essentials. Rough cost is about $60. And then as far as the certificate course goes, there are the 5 books that are required. Those will all be listed on the website, just so everyone has a heads up. Estimated cost for the 5 books is $275.
Great. And as a follow-on question to that, Carrie, are these programs appropriate for financial aid or any sort of payment plan?
So the programs are not eligible for financial aid because they are non-credit, non-degree programs. And then the second part of the question was payment plans. So payment plans are available. I would say for the certificate program, they range from a payment in full all the way to the longest payment plan we have is a 6-month payment plan. And for the essentials course, again, the shorter course, it is a payment in full all the way up to a 3-month payment plan. The payment plans that I'm currently talking about, we would have to apply those for the May session. If you are looking to join the upcoming January session, a payment in full would be required. Again, if you are looking for a payment plan, they are available, but they would have to be started for the May session, not the January session.
Great, thank you. And Melinda, there's a question about the actual course content and if there are tests. So can you speak to a little bit about how the assessment piece works and how the courses are graded?
In the Essentials course, you have assessments, and they are like quizzes and very basic. In the certificate program, you have assessments that are like an open book test. They are multiple choice, and you can revisit it numerous times and it doesn't change. So the 10 points you might get are almost guaranteed. If you take it enough times, you'll get the answers correct. In the certificate course, there are also, they're not tests, but they're usually essays. And your assignment is to do something and write about it. For instance, choose your problem is you find a problem that's in the last 100 years, and you are told to write a statement of your goal, to record what you know and how you know it, and to then make a 3-step plan for learning the answer. And you identify what your methodology is. So that's like a 2-page paper. There's usually something of that length in each of the 5 modules. You have your repository report, which is an assignment to go out and find a document in an archive, interact with an archivist, and answer certain questions that are posed by the instructor in the first module. There are problems like the photo identification. You need to follow the steps, and you need to identify the people. And 99% of our students get a great grade on that exercise. It's very surprisingly easy. There are probably 2 or 3 other kinds of assignments that require you to view something or to trace something through Ancestry.com. We use the library edition, which is part of your tuition. You are able to use Ancestry library edition.com, and you are assigned to solve a problem, locate this person, or who is this person, that sort of test. You also will be reading articles and recognizing whether or not someone has met the genealogical proof standard. So your critiquing skills are developed there. And lastly, the discussion areas in some of the modules are graded. So when you're posed with a question in the discussions, what you have to say and how clearly you say it is graded. And in some cases, it's just a count. As long as you're not saying, yeah, I agree with this other person, then you get a point for having participated in a discussion. So that's pretty much the grading area. In some of the modules, you can get extra points. I believe the scavenger hunt is entirely extra points, but very hotly contested points, because that's a very popular thing.
Great. We have about 10 more minutes left in the webinar, so if you have a question, again, just a reminder to enter it in the question box now, and we'll do our best to answer it before our time is over here. A couple other questions that I'm seeing coming through, Melindy, relate again to the certification and becoming a CG. So maybe you could just clarify what the results of the certificate program is and what you receive from Boston University and how that differs from becoming a CG, Certified Genealogist.
Right. As far as I know, the BU certificate program is the only course at a university that is specifically intended to give you the skill set to be successful with a BCG portfolio. That is not the same thing as doing a BCG portfolio. So in the first module, for instance, one of your first assignments is to transcribe a document and then to abstract that document. These are identical to the first requirements in the portfolio. You need to do those things well in order to become a CG. However, you can't use the document that you used in the BU course for your document in the portfolio. The portfolio needs to be completely independently done. It needs not to have been reviewed by friends or peers or instructors. It needs to be your work. So we try to set you up to be successful by taking you through examples of what you'll have to do on your own for the portfolio. At the end of the certificate program, if you've achieved a C+ in all the modules and a B- average, you receive your certificate. And the certificate is that. It allows you to participate with the alumni group, and it's a great credential when you are going in front of a judge in a case where you're an expert witness, or a credential for employment. It's very well known and highly regarded now. To then approach BCG and go on the clock, as they say, you have a year in which to fulfill all 5 of the requirements and submit them so that they can be judged by 3 independent judges. And if you pass, then you become a certified genealogist. And if you don't, you have the option to petition about the decision, and there's no bar to going back and reapplying, and several people have. think that covers it pretty generally.
Yes, that's great. There's one question about research. If you've done most of your research online, is it important that you do kind of the physical research before enrolling in the certificate program?
No, if you view deeds online, that's fine. You know what they look like, you know what they contain in a particular place at a particular time. We would just like to avoid situations where people are looking at those online documents and not knowing what they are. If you've never handled a parish register and it's all in Latin, you might not really understand what it is, and those folks need that experience to be successful in the certificate program. So if you can view them online, that's fine. I suggested going in person to the Registry of Deeds or Vital Records because it's a common place that people eventually end up no matter what they're researching. And it would be an easy place to understand what's in front of you. But no, you can do it entirely online.
Okay, great. And Carrie, there are a few questions about the May session, so maybe you could just remind us of the enrollment deadlines for the January and the upcoming summer and fall sessions.
I would be happy to. So the January session starts January the 17th. The enrollment deadline is December 31st. The May session starts May the 9th, 2017. The enrollment deadline will be coming out soon for that one, so you can just circle your calendar, May the 9th. And then the fall session for next year will be starting September the 5th. All of this information will soon be added to the website with the ability to enroll in the May or fall session with one of those longer payment plans that we discussed earlier.
Great. Well, thank you all for joining us today and your participation and interesting questions. This was wonderful. And thank you, Melinda and Carrie, for presenting. If you have any additional questions about the Boston University programs in genealogical research, you can visit the website, which is up on your screen now, or email or call us, and the team would be happy to help you. Again, thank you so much for joining. We appreciate your interest.